In 1971, the American dollar was cut loose from gold. Overnight, it was backed by nothing. By every rule of money, it should have started to sink. It did the opposite. Today, more than half of all the money the world's central banks hold in reserve is still dollars, and almost every barrel of oil on Earth is still priced in them. That is not an accident, and it is not gold. It is the result of one secret handshake in a Saudi palace in 1974, kept off the books for 41 years. This is the audit of the deal that made the whole world hold your money. For 25 years after the war, the dollar had a simple promise behind it. Any country holding dollars could bring them to America and trade them for gold at $35 an ounce. That promise was the anchor. The problem was arithmetic. America had printed far more dollars than it had gold to cover them, on wars, on spending, on the world. By 1971, foreign governments could see the vault was nearly empty, and they began lining up to swap their paper for metal before it ran out. On August 15, 1971, Richard Nixon went on television and closed the window. No more gold. The dollar was now backed by nothing but trust. 2 years later, that trust was tested. In 1973, America backed Israel in a war, and the Arab oil producers struck back. They cut off the oil. The price roughly quadrupled, from around $3 a barrel to nearly $12. In America, there were lines around the block at the gas stations and rationing by license plate. The country that had just unhooked its money from gold was now staring at an economy that ran on a resource it did not control. Washington needed a way to turn the thing that was strangling it, expensive oil, into the thing that would save it. And the man they sent to do it was not a general or a diplomat. He was a bond salesman. William Simon had just been made Treasury Secretary. Before that, he ran the government bond desk at Salomon Brothers, and there was no one alive who better understood how to sell a country on the idea of buying American debt. In July 1974, Simon flew to Saudi Arabia. The offer he carried was simple. America would buy Saudi oil. America would sell the kingdom weapons and guarantee its protection. And in return, the Saudis would take the mountains of dollars they earned from that oil and quietly pour them back into the United States by buying American Treasury bonds. The Saudis said yes, with one condition. King Faisal demanded that the purchases stay strictly secret, so they were. The Treasury agreed to hide the Saudi holdings by burying them inside a group of 15 nations, labeled only oil exporters. That accounting trick held for 41 years. The world did not learn the true size of the deal until 2016. Here is why that handshake mattered far beyond Saudi Arabia. Oil was, and still is, priced and sold in dollars. Think about what that forces. If you are Japan or India or Germany and you need oil, you cannot pay in your own money. You first have to get dollars. Every country on earth that burns oil, which is every country, has to hold a stockpile of American currency just to keep its lights on. That is a permanent, worldwide demand for the dollar that no other nation's money enjoys. And the second half of the deal closed the loop. The oil states earned all of those dollars, and instead of spending them, they lent them straight back to America by buying its debt. That flood of money let the United States borrow more cheaply than any country in history and run deficits that would sink anyone else. The French had a name for this power. They called it America's exorbitant privilege. The dollar was no longer backed by gold in a vault. It was backed by the fact that the whole world needed it to buy oil, and then handed its savings back to Washington. That is the machine.
Now, here is the part the internet gets wrong. You will hear that there is a secret treaty forcing the world to price oil in dollars,
That it expired in June 2024, and that the dollar's death clock is now ticking. Almost none of that is true. There was never a single signed contract that made oil a dollars-only business. When American investigators went looking for one, the government's own auditors confirmed it did not exist. What actually expired in 2024 was a narrow economic commission from 1974, not a secret money treaty, and Saudi Arabia went right on selling its oil in dollars the very next day. The real story is quieter and much harder to kill, because it is a habit, not a law. But the slow erosion is real. The dollar was about 72% of the world's reserves in 2001. Today it is closer to 57. That is a slow leak over 20 years, not a collapse. Countries are testing other currencies at the edges. The machine is not breaking. It is just very slowly getting older. So, what actually holds the dollar up? Not gold. That anchor was cut in 1971. Not the size of the American economy alone, because a great deal of that economy runs on borrowed money. What holds it up is a loop that started with a handshake. The world needs oil. Oil is bought in dollars. So the world holds dollars. And the states that earn those dollars lend them back to America, which lets America keep spending. It is one of the most powerful arrangements ever built, and for 41 years, most of it was invisible, hidden inside a line on a ledger that just said oil exporters. The men who built it were not cartoon villains. They were solving a crisis, and they solved it brilliantly for the United States. But it is worth knowing that the money in your pocket is not backed by a medal, or by a promise, or even really by faith. It is backed by the fact that you still need it to buy the one thing the modern world cannot run without. That is not a conspiracy. It is just the receipt. History, audited.